A rare visit since 2019, a U.S. Congressional delegation to China caught the media spotlight after it began a trip to China over the weekend.
We want to open up a dialogue, begin the process of getting our two countries to better understand each other, better get along, and then hopefully work together to help solve some of the problems that the world faces. We still have massive issues of poverty and hunger across the world. Terrorism, instability in a bunch of places in the world, protecting the environment to make sure that we can preserve this planet.
That is a sensible message that the world expects. Well, for China, the attitude toward bilateral relations with the U.S. has been clear, consistent, and straightforward throughout the years, through various U.S. administrations. The Chinese premier repeated that stance during his meeting with the U.S. Congressional delegation. And here I quote, "China and the U.S. should be partners for common development, treat each other with sincerity, empower each other, and achieve mutual success. China is willing to work with the U.S. to address each other's concerns through communication in a spirit of equality, respect, and mutual benefit." The Chinese premier calls on the U.S. Congress to view China and bilateral relations in a correct way, actively facilitate exchanges and cooperation, and play a constructive role in fostering China-U.S. friendship and common development. At the top level, China has been consistent with top leadership diplomacy, with presidents from both countries, China and United States, having several phone calls and reaching consensus that both sides should have more dialogue and cooperation. China hopes the U.S. works with China in the same direction to advance bilateral relations along the correct path, benefiting both countries and the world at large. And the Chinese Premier Li Qiang, Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng, Chinese Defense Minister Dong Jun, and Foreign Minister Wang Yi reiterated those points clearly in their respective meetings with the U.S. Congressional delegation. At the grassroots level, China invited members of the American Flying Tiger and their families to the military parade celebrating the 80th anniversary of the victory of the Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression and the World Anti-Fascist War. Meanwhile, many people from both China and the United States are working hard to maintain academic, educational, and youth exchanges. Seeing is believing. Face-to-face can be the most accurate as rhetoric gets the relationships nowhere. It seems that has been received clearly. Even members of the visiting U.S. Congressional delegation to China had this to say in their media briefing at the U.S. Embassy in Beijing.
There's such a rapid change in technology in terms of what AI and drone warfare and cyber and space. It is moving so rapidly and innovation is happening so quickly. The risk of a misunderstanding of capabilities on one side or the other is great. And I think there needs to be communication about that.
Better late than never. Many hope this U.S. Congressional delegation's visit to China can bring more engagement between the two sides, especially for the U.S. lawmakers to play a more constructive role in this most important bilateral relationship between China and the United States. Tian Wei, CGTN, Beijing.